trying to pre-film. Love it. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are doing a sequel, I guess, to my Learning Lines video about how to learn music as quickly as you can. There's no quick way to learn music unless you have one of those brains. So this is just how to learn it thoroughly and as efficiently as possible. Before we get started, Show of the Week is Beautiful, a jukebox musical about a singer-songwriter, namely Carole King. So I'll put a link to the cast recording below so that you can check it out. I actually quite like it as a jukebox musical. Not usually a big fan of the jukeboxes, but I enjoyed that one. This video doesn't require you to be able to read sheet music. However, I can read sheet music, I can sight sing. If you would like a video on how to read sheet music, like a beginner's guide for actor singers, let me know in the comments and I will happily do that for you. So, without further ado, let's dive in so we can learn how to learn music together as a community. I'm quite tired today. I had a really stressful and busy day and I'm going to Bath in less than a week. Woo! Loving life. Okay, that's me done. Let's get into the video. Step number 1 is to listen to the song if you can. This isn't always possible. For example, if you're doing an audition and you've been sent a song and it's a piece of new writing, but if it's a revival, a well-known song, if they've been kind enough to send you a demo, listen to the song. Because even if you can read music, sometimes you don't really get the feel and vibe of a song until you hear it. Also, there might be things like rhythms where sometimes, again, no matter how good you are at reading music, if you read music, sometimes it's just better to learn it by ear and feel how the rhythm is rather than looking at the notes and trying to read the rhythm. So yeah, if you can, listen to the song first. For the next steps, you're probably aware that there is the music side of things, like learning the tune, and there's the lyric side of things. Which order you do these two aspects is up to you. It doesn't matter, it depends on how you work. Also, it will depend on how you work whether you learn the two bits completely separately and then bring them together, or if you bring them together as you go. That will depend on you as a person and also to an extent your experience as you get used to learning music. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to do learning music first and then learning lyrics second, but you can swap them around, and the kind of way that I'm describing in this video, it doesn't matter what way around you do them, just so you're aware. But it doesn't matter if you do lyrics first and then music, or music first and then lyrics. It doesn't matter. So for learning the music, first step is to go through the tune phrase by phrase. Don't try and learn the whole thing in one go, because what happens when you try and do that, when you just repeat the song from start to finish over and over again, either singing along or just trying to sight read it, is that if you misread or mishear something, it can cause inconsistencies and the tune doesn't fully get into your voice. There are different ways that you can do this. This is the method that I use. I was taught it when I was training at drama school at RAM by my singing teacher that I had, and I find it really useful. The first thing I do is I take a phrase and I sing it on a Z sound, sliding between note and note, so I can really find the difference between one note and the next. Then I sing the section, the phrase, on a ging sound. That helps to keep your tongue root nice and high. It helps you check that you actually can sing the intervals without needing to slide, and it's a useful place to start with placement. Or the Z as well also helps with placement, but the ging can really help you nail if you're getting into the center of the note. Ging, 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 ging. The next thing I do is I do what is called myroning. So that's when you siren the tune on an ng sound, but you mouth the words at the same time. So the siren again helps you with placing the note, but the mouthing helps you get used to placing the note while your mouth is making the shape of the lyrics. And then finally, I sing the section or the phrase just normally. So sing it full voice with the lyrics. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? I like this method because it really helps you to make sure that you're in the center of the note. And the method in and of itself requires repeating the phrase that you're working on over and over again. When I say a phrase, that can either be a lyric phrase, so working on the lyrics, each sentence or thing that makes sense, or you can do it by bars, whatever works for you, and it will vary from song to song. If you don't like that method, if you try it and it doesn't work for you, you don't have to do that. You can just do it with repetition. If any of you guys are familiar with breaking down the riffs, the kind of series that Natalie Weiss did. I don't know if she still does it. That was quite a long time ago. But she does numbers when she's breaking down riffs, or she does da-da-das, or whatever it is. Whatever sound that works for you. But the point is that you want to make sure that your notes that you're singing are accurate and that you're in the center of the note. Number 2, which isn't so much a step but more of something to be mindful of, is to beware of consonants. This is something that I struggle with as well and that I need to be mindful of when learning songs, but basically you want to make sure that your consonants are on the note just as much as your vowels are. This is really important when it comes to placement. Oftentimes when I'm finding that my placement is off, it will be because I'm placing my consonant on a note that's underneath where the vowel is. So for example, with a sound like la, if I can demonstrate it, what you don't want is la. If you could hear that, the L was on a different note, the L sound was on a different note to the R. What you want is la, so the L sound is on the same note. This is really easy to hear with voiced sounds, voiced consonants like L, B, G, D, V, Z, J. But you also want to do it on voiceless consonants. Now obviously when it's a voiceless consonant you won't hear a S on a note, but you want your larynx to be set up so it's on that note, so it's well placed for when the voiceless consonant opens up into a vowel. There's an aeroplane, just deal with the aeroplane. The aeroplane wants to know about this as well. It's just all of my videos, it's either aeroplanes or geese. I might just wait for the aeroplane to go, actually. Even with voiceless consonants, you still want your larynx to be in the position of where it will open up into the voiced vowel sound. The way you can do that is replacing the voiceless consonants with their voiced counterparts. So if you have a word in the lyric that has k, t, or p, you'd want to replace them with, oh god, k would be g, t would be d, and p would be b. My brain. The reason that those are coupled up like that is because your tonguelets and teeth are in exactly the same place. It's just one version is voiced and the other one is not. For example, d and t, your tonguelets and teeth are doing exactly the same thing, but voiced is d and voiceless is t. You can check the placement and make sure that you're placing your consonants on the same note in terms of your larynx placement as the vowel it opens up into, and then obviously once you've got that into your muscle memory you can revert back to the voiceless consonants and everything will be fine. Every time I have bad placement I check my consonant placements and it usually sorts me out, so there you go. Tip number 3 for runs, riffs, melismatic sections, whatever you want to call them, especially if they don't come naturally to you like they don't for me. I can't just riff off the top of my brain, that doesn't work for me. If you have a song where there is a melismatic run, a riff, etc., or it's a style where that kind of embellishment would be expected, start slowly. Like with the phrases, break it down, slowly build up. So do the first section, get that down slowly, then add the next, work on the next section, add that on, next section, add that on. Once you've got the placements and you know what all of the notes are, again, keep it slow. As you get it into your muscle memory, you will start to pick up speed and you will eventually get to a point where you're doing it at speed, or you get to a point where it's like, let's try and do it at speed. This is the same whether it's, you know, pop riffs and runs or gospel riffs and runs, Or if you're doing classical melismatic runs, it's exactly the same. Just break it down into small chunks, do it slowly, repeat and repeat and repeat until it's in your muscle memory and you can do it fast. Another trick when I did a year of classical singing on my undergraduate degree was playing with the rhythm as well, playing around with rhythms, singing it forwards, then singing it backwards. That kind of stuff, again, can help get it into your muscle memory and get it more fluid and more flexible in your voice as well. And then finally, with learning the music side of things, once you've got the notes comfortably into your voice and any tricky technical things like runs and riffs, play around with the vocal qualities that you want to use. If you're learning a song purely to put it in your rep or for general practice, you can really play around with this outside of the style that the song was written in. Another aeroplane. Now, obviously, if you were then to take that song into an audition or into a performance, you couldn't sing like If I Loved You in the style of Aretha Franklin, and you wouldn't sing Pulled from Addams Family in the style of Oklahoma. But what playing around with vocal qualities can do is it can open up kind of creative avenues for you. It might unlock things in performance that you wouldn't have usually found before. If you don't know what I mean by vocal qualities, I did a Drunken Explain with Josh where I talked about vocal qualities and a still and everything, so watch that if you want it explained in a tipsy manner. But I do go into all of the technicalities of it if you're interested and you have no idea what I'm talking about. If you don't have time to do that kind of experimentation, if you're learning a song specifically for a performance or an audition or anything like that, then you want to go straight into working with the vocal qualities that the song was written for and get those into your voice. So for example, if you're doing something from more legit musical theatre, making sure that you've got lovely tilt, working on your line and getting that into your muscle memory. If you're doing something that's more belty, knowing where you want to tip from maybe more of a mix or twang or speech quality into belt, because you don't have to belt all the way through, making sure that your anchoring is there, getting that into your muscle memory. So again, in performance, you don't have to think about it, and putting on those kind of final finishing touches onto your musical performance of the song. Next, or before that, however you want to do it, is learning lyrics. Number one is, even if you're taking the song out of context, read a synopsis of the show. Obviously, this is for if it's a musical theatre song from a show that has a wider theatrical context. If it's a pop song or another type of song that doesn't have that context, it's just a standalone, then obviously you can skip that particular step. But even if you're taking a musical theatre song out of context, you still need to know the context that the song was originally performed in, because then you can intelligently strip that context away if you so choose. You don't want to get to a point where you completely are misunderstanding a song out of context, and there might be people who know the song in context who are like, that makes absolutely no sense. Why are you singing it like you're happy when the character was sad? And that's not to say that that choice isn't valid, but you want to make that choice consciously. You don't want to just be making random choices willy-nilly. So you need to know the context, even if you're then going to choose to ignore it, if that makes sense. Tip number two is to read the lyrics like a monologue. And that means just reading it like a speech, not in the rhythm of the song. This can be useful for two reasons. Firstly, it's very useful if you are new to acting through song. If you're not used to performing songs as theatrical pieces, you're more used to performing in straight theatre, kind of regular plays, monologues, things like that. Reading the lyrics out loud as a monologue can help you engage with that part of your brain, because all songs, especially in theatre, songs used in a theatrical way are scenes. And you can even go through and action the song lyrics as if you would a monologue. The other thing it can be useful for is if you're learning a song that you already know. And I don't mean know as in you've performed it, but you're very, very familiar with. For example, On My Own from Les Mis. That is an incredibly well-known song. There have been hundreds and hundreds of different versions, performances, recordings of that song. It's the kind of song where if you know theatre, if you know musical theatre, you probably know it so well, it's kind of cease to exist as a piece of theatrical text that you can work on, if that makes sense. It's almost like its own thing. So you can go into learning that song just being like, well, this is how everyone sings it, without actually thinking about what are the actual lyrics saying, what is the journey, which we're going to get into in a sec. So it can be useful to break you out of that if you're needing to learn a song that you already are very, very familiar with, to help you see it with fresh eyes. Number 3, think about the story of the song. Like I said, all songs, especially in theatre, are scenes in their own right. And you are playing a character. So think about, what does your character want? Who is your character talking to? What does your character want to achieve in this scene, in the wider context of the show? What are their motivations? And then also from a more dramaturgical standpoint, how does your character start the song and how does your character finish the song? Drama and theatre is all about conflict and change. So what is the conflict that your character has that they're either having with another character that they're singing to, or they're working through internally, and how does your character change from the beginning of the song and the end? Make sure you have all of that figured out, because even if you're performing the song out of context, that's what makes things interesting. And it might be that you have to put some of that dramaturgical stuff onto a song. For example, when I performed Scarborough Fair in the post-show for The Unquiet Grave, I put on some of that dramaturgical change in my performance. It might be that you have to put that stuff onto a song that maybe isn't designed to be theatrical and you're trying to perform it in a theatrical way, but that's still something that you need to think about. And finally, number 4 for lyrics is now to say the lyrics in rhythm. This can be really useful if, again, you are not used to making thoughts last for the duration of a musical phrase. Sometimes musical phrasing can be way longer than you would naturally carry on a thought, and that's something you need to work with. It's a similar thing to Shakespeare. You can have a thought in Shakespeare that, if we were to say it normally, would be like 4 words, done, next thought. But in the Shakespearean text, it's 2 lines of iambic pentameter, and it's like really, really long. Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it can be like a whole chunk of like 7 lines for a thought that literally today would be 4 words. And you have to try and make that thought and intention last for those 6 lines of iambic pentameter. That is the framework within which you're working, and you have to make it work. So if you struggle with that in song, once you've worked through all the action intentions, what your character wants, you've said it as just a normal monologue without the rhythm, going back to saying it in rhythm and trying to sustain those thoughts for as long as they need to be sustained can be really helpful. I'll give you an example of this because it's there on my music stand. In The Light in the Piazza, from The Light in the Piazza, there's a lyric in the middle towards the end, kind of coda-ish section of the song, where Clara sings, "All I need is, all I want is tearing from inside. I see it, now I see it." That's how you'd say it naturally. In rhythm, it's, "All I need is, all I want is tearing from inside. I see it, now I see it." Blah, blah, blah. Lots of really long minims, and naturally you wouldn't say those lines like that if it were a monologue. You wouldn't have to sustain those thoughts as long. If you're singing that song, you do. So saying the words in rhythm can help you get used to having to sustain thoughts for longer than is natural if you're not used to it. So you've learnt your music, you've learnt your lyrics, let's put them together. And the final steps is, firstly, like I said in my Learning Lines video, repetition, repetition, repetition. When I was at RAM, one of our teachers actually said that it takes about 1,000 repetitions of a song for it to really get into your voice. And that's not to say that you need to sing a song 1,000 times for it to be performance ready or audition ready, far from it, but that should just give you an idea of how much repetition can help. Not only in terms of actually learning how the song goes and learning how the words go, but getting everything into your muscle memory, especially the singing side of things, the technique side of things, so that when you get to performance, you don't have to think about, oh, I need to anchor here and I need to make sure I tilt there and I need to take a big enough breath on this bit. Ideally, you want to get to a point where all of that kind of mechanical, physical stuff, you don't have to worry about. It's there and it's going to happen on its own. So you can just focus on, what is my character doing? What are they saying? What are they trying to convey? Or if it's a situation where it's more of a concert and you don't have to worry so much about playing actions and it being a character thing, entertaining your audience, engaging with your audience, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to completely disconnect from the moment and not be present because I have to think about this technical thing that I need to do. And then my final point isn't so much a step, but it's more of a tip or a bit of advice, especially if you're rehearsing on your own without the help of a director or a musical director, is don't fall into the trap of playing what the music is doing. The great thing about acting through song, the great thing about musical theatre is that you have another element that you can either play with, or oftentimes it's really exciting to play against. If the music is doing sad, you don't have to worry about playing the sad. Obviously it's still there and you need to be aware of it, and you can let the sad come out when you want to, but you don't need to be playing sad all the way through, because for the audience, the music is doing that for them. So you can play the other things, like, are they trying to hurt the other person who's hurt them? Are they trying to reassure them? Are they trying to placate them? You can play all of those qualities because the music is doing the sad for you. For an audience, that can be much more engaging and much more exciting, because it's not like we're just getting sad upon sad. We get it, you're sad, and we're past the first verse and we're already bored because it's just sad. You can really amp up the other colours. This isn't a hard and fast rule, however, because there are some songs where you really want to lean into what the music is doing. The first thing that pops to my head is I Know Things Now from Into the Woods, where the beginning of the song and the end of the song is very kind of sing-songy accompaniment, very children's song, not lullaby. What are they called, like children's songs? Like, I can't remember the name of the type of song, but you know what I mean, like Ring a Ring a Roses, that kind of vibe. And then in the middle section where it gets darker and more sinister, where she's talking about, spoiler alert, but it's Little Red Riding Hood, you know this, where she's talking about being eaten by the wolf, and the music really paints those colours and paints that journey for you. So as an actor, you can really play into that. But there are other situations, for example, keeping on Sondheim because he's really good at this, Send in the Clowns. The music is giving you the sadness and the regret of, what is the name of that character? Oh, take away my musical theatre card. You know, the chick who's played by Judi Dench in the Sondheim proms thing. The music is giving you the sad and the regret. So if you want to, you can play more of her stoicism and her cynicism and, you know, don't bother, they're here. More of that kind of energy. You don't have to be like, send in the clowns, oh my god, it's so sad. You don't need to do that. The reason I say this as a point is because when you're on your own, music is such an emotive thing, right? You can really get carried away with the vibe the music is giving you. It can be really easy to fall into the trap of playing what the music's giving you without thinking about it and making that a conscious choice. So just be aware and know that sometimes it's better and more interesting from the audience standpoint to not play what the music is doing. So those are my tips on how to learn music, learn songs as efficiently as possible. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want a video on how to read music for beginners. Happy to do that for you guys. And if you enjoyed this one, please consider liking and subscribing. Would love to have you on the channel. Come on down, we have a swell time. Stay tuned for more theatre content from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye friends!